This man named Walter Sparrow works at the Animal Control Department. He has a wife named Agatha and an only son named Robin. One day while on duty, he receives a report about a dog named Ned that needs to be caught. The dog had entered a shop. Since it was a bit aggressive and no one dared to remove it, Walter was called in. When he tried to get the dog out, it bit him and ran away. Walter chased it and ended up at a cemetery, where he saw the dog sitting in front of the grave of a girl named Laura Tollins. However, the dog suddenly vanished. That day was Walter's birthday. In the evening, Agatha bought a red-covered book for him from a bookstore named A Novel Fate. The name of the book was The Number 23, written by Top Secrets. After the party at Agatha's friend Dr. Isaac's house, they return home and Walter begins reading the book. The central character in the book is Fingerling, named after a childhood book titled Fingerling at the Zoo. Fingerling had a lonely childhood focused mostly on studying. However, he had a deep desire to become a detective. His father was an accountant by profession. On his 8th birthday, a neighbor's dog led him to a room where he saw Dobkins lying dead on the bed. Someone had stabbed and killed him. Although the doctor declared it suicide, Fingerling believed it was a murder. From that day on, his desire to become a detective grew even stronger. Suddenly, Agatha interrupted the reading. She smiled seeing Walter so immersed in the book. Walter said he felt an uncanny connection with the character Fingerling. Because when he was a child, his mother used to read Fingerling at the zoo to him. Even his neighbor's name was Dobkins, just like in the story, who also died on Walter's 8th birthday. Walter loved Dobkins like his own mother. Not just that, he also had a dog named Alfie. Agatha said that it often happens, we see ourselves in story characters. There's nothing unusual about that. The next chapter of the book is about Lucy. Lucy has mental health issues. She repeatedly tries to kill herself. Fingerling, the detective, arrives after receiving a call from her neighbor to save her. Lucy had tied a rope around her neck, ready to die, but Fingerling talked her out of it with clever persuasion. According to Lucy, the number 23 is the cause of her mental illness. She sees the number 23 everywhere and in everything. She inherited this obsession from her father, who also died because of this number. Lucy sees 23 on her license plate, book pages, elevators, everywhere. Her favorite color is pink, which also contains 23. Pink is a mix of red and white. According to alphabetical values, R equals 18, E equals 5, D equals 4, their total is 27. Similarly, the total alphabetical value of white is 65. Now 27 plus 65 is equal to 92. The word pink has 4 letters. If you divide 92 by 4, you get 23. Though Fingerling was surprised by this, as he was about to leave with Lucy, she suddenly jumped to her death from above. The reason for her death, the cursed number 23. This incident deeply affected not only Fingerling but also Walter. Driven by curiosity, one day Walter went back to the bookstore to inquire about Top Secrets. He found out that the book was self-published and that the author hadn't written any other books. Meanwhile, Walter began to notice the number 23 in various parts of his own life. For instance, his birthday is February 3rd, the 2nd month and the 3rd day, making 23. Even his birth time was 11:12 p.m. 11 plus 12 is equal to 23. So, there's no doubt in his mind that the book is about him. In another chapter, the character Fabrizia is introduced. She was 32 years old when Fingerling met her. Walter was 23 years old when he first met Agatha, and that day was September 14th. September is the 9th month, and 9 plus 14 is equal to 23. Walter and Agatha got married on October 13th. October is the 10th month. 10 plus 13 is equal to 23. Chapter 7 of the story focuses on the relationship between Fingerling and Fabrizia. They were initially physically attracted to each other. But with time, Fingerling began hallucinating about Fabrizia. He constantly imagined himself killing her. As Walter's mental state worsened, Agatha shared everything with Dr. Isaac. Walter then met Isaac personally. Isaac explained that many conspiracy theories exist around the number 23. It is called the 23 enigma. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Blood circulates in the human body every 23 seconds. The Mayan civilization believed the world would end on December 12, 2012. 20 plus 1 plus 2 is equal to 23. Walter then asked, is the number 23 a blessing or a curse? Isaac replied, some people find happiness by believing in certain numbers, like lucky 7 or unlucky 13. So if Walter finds happiness chasing 23, he should finish the book. Then he'll understand what's real and what's not. It could even be that someone close to him wrote the book. Thus, a few more days went by. Walter notices that Fingerling had written about Fabrizia owning 23 pairs of shoes, exactly matching Agatha's shoe count. Fingerling used to have nightmares of repeatedly killing Fabrizia. So he consulted a psychologist named Dr. Miles Phoenix about it. Miles Phoenix advised him to take a few days off from work. But Fabrizia wasn't happy about his break from work. On a rainy night, Fingerling was holding a musical instrument, obsessively thinking about the number 23. Meanwhile, without Fingerling's knowledge, a relationship had developed between Dr. Miles and Fabrizia. Even after knowing everything, Fingerling silently tolerated their behavior. But this chapter began planting doubts in Walter's mind about Agatha and Isaac, as he started to suspect that something similar might be happening in his own life. That night at exactly 11:12 p.m., Walter suddenly woke up. As he got up in frustration, he saw Agatha lying in bed, covered in blood. Walter had stabbed and dismembered her. Just then, he suddenly woke up again. It was a dream within a dream. But when he checked the clock, it was still 11:12 p.m. Walter left home in his car. Unknowingly, he arrived at the King Edward Hotel. He had no idea why he was there and didn't even remember if he'd ever been there before. At the reception, he asked, "Is room 23 available?" A man sitting a short distance away looked at him in surprise. Once inside the room, he opened chapter 22 of the book. By then, Fingerling had already killed Fabrizia and framed Dr. Miles, leading to his arrest. In room 23 of the hotel, Fingerling was frantically pacing around with a musical instrument in hand. He screamed like a madman and suddenly opened the window. Strong winds and the noise of traffic filled the room. But what happened next is unknown, because chapter 23 is blank in the book. What happened to Fingerling? Did anyone die because of 23? Nothing was written. Suddenly, Ned, the dog, barked from the street. Walter, enraged, grabbed his tranquilizer gun and chased after it. As the dog collapsed from the shot, Walter noticed the tag on its collar. To his surprise, the alphabetical value of Ned adds up to 23. But how could that be possible? Why did Ned return to Laura Tolland's grave again? At that moment, a local officer and a priest arrived and assured Walter that the dog was perfectly fine. Then Walter looked at the grave and noticed the birth and death years both equaled 23. The priest said that was an approximation, as Laura's body was never recovered. Walter didn't delay any longer. He collected some old newspaper clippings and showed them to Agatha one by one. 15 years ago, a college student named Laura Tolland was murdered. But her body was never found. The police had discovered a knife at the crime scene with the fingerprints of her psychology professor, Kyle, and arrested him. They had been in a romantic relationship. Their intimate moments and everything they did, all of it was written in the number 23. This meant that Kyle Flinch had written the book. And he was actually Top Secrets, whose sins were fully documented in the book. The next day, Walter went to prison to meet Kyle Flinch. But to his shock, Kyle said he never wrote that book, and that he was innocent. He was wrongly imprisoned. He even added that if he had actually written the book, he would never have used such a cheap pseudonym like Top Secrets. Then Walter was stunned by Kyle's pronunciation. He had never thought of it before, that Top Secrets could be pronounced Top Secrets. It also matched the story, because the book contained Fingerling's secrets. Walter left with thousands of questions in his mind. Walter told Agatha that Kyle was telling the truth. He didn't commit the murder. Even Kyle's name doesn't align with the number 23. Then Robin said he had secretly read the book and discovered something. Just after chapter 22, 2 pages were glued together, and one of them had a P.O. box address of the writer. So, they planned to send 23 empty boxes by express post to that address and waited nearby to see who would come to receive them. At the scheduled time and place, they saw a middle-aged man in a black coat come to collect the boxes. Walter chased him and questioned him about the book. Suddenly, the man slit his own throat. Agatha took charge of getting him to the hospital and sent Walter home with Robin. That's when Agatha noticed the man's entire body was covered in 23 related equations. He was completely insane. But before dying, the man gave Agatha a card that had his name on it, Dr. Larry. Following the address, Agatha arrived at an abandoned Nathaniel's mental hospital, which used to be supervised by Dr. Larry. Breaking through the old, decaying gates, Agatha reached room 318, Dr. Larry's former cabin. There, she saw the walls covered with equations related to the number 23, written in a manic frenzy. There was also a box labeled Walter Sparrow, with a case number, 85,307, which again adds up to 23. At that moment, someone was seen entering the place. Meanwhile, Walter, using the 23rd word of the 23rd page in the book, found a hidden clue. Under the stairs of heaven in Casanova Park, you will find hell. Accordingly, Walter went to Casanova Park with Robin and dug beneath the 23rd stair. There, they found a skeleton. As soon as they saw it, they informed the police. But when the police arrived, the skeleton was gone. The police gave them a warning and left. Soon after, Isaac and Agatha came to the park. Because before coming here, Walter had left notes about Casanova Park at home. But along the way, Walter noticed mud on Agatha's fingers, meaning, something is definitely going on behind his back, or perhaps there's a secret that keeps getting hidden again and again. Back at home, Walter asked Agatha about it. And that's when he remembered something from the beginning. After Walter first told her about the number 23, Agatha had sarcastically joked, "Someday I'll write a story and steal someone's secret too." Even Isaac had commented, maybe the person who wrote the book is someone close to Walter. That meant Top Secrets was none other than Agatha herself. Maybe to protect her secret, she intentionally didn't try to save Larry at the post office. That's when Agatha confessed, she and Isaac had moved the skeleton from the park, and they had gone to Nathaniel's hospital. So, the person Walter saw arriving there was Dr. Isaac. But Agatha said she wasn't the author of the number 23 book, it was Walter himself. Hearing this, Walter stood in shock. "What are you saying?" Then Agatha opened the box labeled, "Sparrow, Walter," found in Dr. Larry's cabin. Inside it were, that very musical instrument, some papers, and the original copy of the book The Number 23, where the author's name was printed as Walter Paul Sparrow. Everything now felt like a dream to Walter. It was the same instrument Fingerling used to carry. There were also magazines about Dobkin's death, detective novels, and an anklet. Walter began running like a madman. He ran straight to room 23 of the King Edward Hotel. He started tearing down layer after layer of wallpaper. The more he peeled, the more shocked he became. Eventually, on the wall, he saw it written, Chapter 23. "Hello Walter, you may also call me Fingerling. Everything you've read in the 22 chapters is true, but I've changed the time, place, and people involved, to protect myself, that is, Walter, from guilt." And then, the real mystery was revealed. The character Fingerling in the book was actually Walter himself. As a child, his mother used to read him a storybook called Fingerling at the zoo. That's where his favorite character's name, Fingerling, came from. In the story, Miss Dobkins was no one else but Walter's mother. She was murdered by Walter's father, who then committed suicide. His father too suffered from a numerical paranoia involving the number 23. This condition was inherited by Walter. Little Walter saw both parents die before his eyes and suffered deep mental trauma. As time passed, in college, he met Laura Tollins, a classmate. He fell in love at first sight. But the relationship didn't last long, because Laura got involved with Professor Kyle, though Kyle had no idea that Laura had been in a relationship with Walter. One day in class, while explaining the number 23 enigma, Walter saw Laura being intimate with Kyle. This triggered Walter's psychosis linked to the number 23 once again. Then one night, at the 23rd stair of Casanova Park, Walter saw Laura and Kyle in a compromising situation. His madness worsened. From then on, Walter began seeing 23 everywhere. Due to his condition, Laura broke up with him. That very night, Walter stabbed and brutally murdered her. He buried her body under the 23rd stair in Casanova Park and took off the anklet from her foot. That's why no one ever found Laura's body. After that, Walter framed Kyle for the murder. The police arrested Kyle, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. To escape his 23 obsession, Walter went into hiding at room 23 of the King Edward Hotel. But with time, the condition drove him to the brink of death. So before committing suicide, he began writing a confession, which slowly turned into a book, then spread across the walls. Walter used his typewriter to complete the first 22 chapters, but before writing chapter 23, he jumped out of the hotel window to end his life. But by some strange twist of fate, or perhaps karma, Walter survived, but lost all his memories. He was placed under the care of Dr. Larry and Dr. Nathaniel at Nathaniel's mental hospital. With time, Walter recovered, forgot his past, and was released from the hospital. That's when he met Agatha, and their new life together began. But on the other side, Dr. Larry, after reading Walter's cursed confession, that is, the number 23 manuscript, became mentally ill himself. He published it under the pseudonym Top Secrets. And inside that Top Secrets lay both the truth of Laura's murder and Walter's darkest secrets. Now that all his lost memories had returned, Walter began feeling deep regret. Because of him, both Laura Tollins and Dr. Larry died. And Kyle was suffering in prison for a crime he never committed. Agatha tried to make him understand that he was no longer that Walter of the past. That the mentally broken Walter had committed those crimes. But Walter couldn't convince himself. Because the reality was, he was a murderer. Saying this, he ran out of the hotel. And then, in front of him, sat the dog Ned, as if reminding him of every moment of Laura's murder. In the distance, a bus approached, its headlights blinding. Walter walked into the light, feeling like death was his only escape. Just then, Robin called out from behind, "Dad." In an instant, Walter snapped out of it and stepped back. No. He wouldn't make that mistake. Years ago, as a child, Walter had lost his mind after watching his father die. And today, after all these years, he was about to make that same mistake in front of Robin. So, what's the difference then? Maybe he couldn't be a good man, but he could still be a good father. Because the difference lies in our decisions. And a decision is what makes one person different from another. So, Walter went to the police and confessed all his past crimes, leading to Kyle's release. He might have to spend a few years in prison, which might not bring joy to his family, but in the end, they'll be able to say that Walter was a good man who made the right decision. Because you must always remember, no matter where you are, your sins will always find you.